Even though following a high protein diet to lose 50 pounds was the best decision I've ever made, there are some things I could have done differently to make my transformation easier. So in this video, I'll show you the 5 changes I should have made on day 1, since making these changes would have sped up my results. But before we talk about how I could have lost fat even faster, let's go back in time. And I mean way back in time. Because, well, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, 1986 was nearly 40 years ago. But we have to go back nearly half a century, since 1986 was when Pee-wee's Big Playhouse first aired on CBS. Back then, I watched in excitement as Pee-wee's guest arrived with tinfoil, because I knew that Pee-wee's giant ball would get even bigger. But even as a 6-year-old, I understood that huge ball wasn't created overnight. It took a whole lot of time and a whole lot of tinfoil to put that thing together. This flashback got me thinking about how much our metabolism is like that giant tinfoil ball. Even though it seems impossible to build a stronger metabolism when it feels like you gain 5 pounds every time you just sniff a donut, with some time and even more patience, it is possible to build a stronger metabolism that works with your fat loss efforts, instead of continuing with the same methods most dieters use that slow your metabolism down. But just like rushing the process by working day and night to build this giant tinfoil ball won't last, neither will following this first fat loss mistake. While you can spend hours slapping on piece after piece, eventually your fingers will start cramping and you'll probably get bored. Even with all of the effort you're putting in, whenever you look at your sad little ball, it feels like you're just stuck in the same spot. That's exactly what happens when you push your fat loss efforts too hard, when you spend hours each week focused on burning as many calories as possible. Let's pretend this tinfoil ball is your metabolism. The more tinfoil we add, the bigger it gets. Every time the ball gets bigger, that's your metabolism speeding up, helping you lose fat even faster in this tinfoil ball metaphor. When you go into your diet full force with the mindset that the fastest way to lose fat is by making every last one of your fat cells cry, that mindset will work at the beginning. But as your body adapts to all of that hard work, so does your metabolism. Which means the effort you put in last week to burn 500 calories only burns 400 this week. Your body continues adapting over time until the hard work you relied on to lose weight faster, only enough to keep you stuck in the same spot. So if you're happy wherever you happen to get stuck, and you don't mind keeping up with all of that intense cardio just to maintain what you've lost, then you're good to go. But if you hit a plateau halfway through, then you'll have to keep going longer and pushing harder if you want cardio to come to the rescue. At some point, you have to do something else with your day other than sweating it out on machines. But once you stop, all of that excessive cardio you relied on to lose weight faster actually slowed your metabolism down to the point that it feels like it's impossible to keep the weight off. So if excessive cardio only serves to slow your metabolism over time, is there anything you can do to speed it up to make fat loss easier? There are a few things you can do to rev up your metabolism, which is exactly what's necessary for a sustainable fat loss plan. The first thing is to quit prioritizing obsessive cardio for quick weight loss and monitor daily steps instead. Because even though prioritizing cardio for faster fat loss will eventually backfire, it's still important to move more in order to boost fat loss as well as for overall health. You may be wondering why moving more throughout the day works better than burning all of the calories in one shot. One reason is you're not burning as many calories as you think you are on cardio machines, especially if you rely on the machine or even your smartwatch to figure out how many calories you burned, since these methods are notorious for overestimating by a lot. Another reason is most people tire themselves out, leading to a few thousand steps taken during your workout, but then you're basically sedentary for the rest of the day. So even though you think you're burning a ton of calories in one shot, it doesn't make much of a difference if overdoing cardio zaps your energy for the rest of the day. Plus, so many dieters still have the mindset that if you work hard in the gym, that you can play hard in the kitchen which is far from the truth. Because the amount of calories you burn in 30 to 60 minutes of cardio can easily be eaten in 30 to 60 seconds while standing in front of the fridge. But moving more isn't the only habit you need to form to rev up your metabolism. Because even though more movement does boost calorie burn, it's still easy enough to wash that boost away in one big gulp. The good news is, you just freed up a lot of time that you would have wasted slowing your metabolism down. The bad news? You have to get serious about developing a habit that only 15% of women over 40 follow on a regular basis. While jumping on a cardio machine to burn all of the calories will initially boost your efforts, over time, this type of exercise sends the signal to slow your metabolism down. Whereas using that time to prioritize a different type of exercise actually sends the signal to speed it up. So even though you won't get the same initial boost when first starting a strength training routine, as long as you stay consistent with your efforts, your metabolism will build over time. This makes building muscle a more effective long-term strategy. But even though this is a habit most women over 40 don't show a lot of interest in, it's the most effective habit you can establish if you don't want to depend on someone else to lift you off the toilet in your golden years. If you think you're too old to start strength training, meet Ernestine Shepherd. She didn't start training until she was 56. Even though a lot of 80-year-olds spend their activity time walking from their bed to the bingo room, this 88-year-old is in better shape than most 20-year-olds. Back in 2016, when she turned 80, Ernestine's routine consisted of running 80 miles per week, followed by strength training, and then she taught group exercise classes. Even though it's not necessary to dedicate your entire life to fitness like Ernestine, even building up to 2 to 3 full body workouts each week is enough to build more metabolism boosting muscle. Plus, strength training comes with tons of other benefits, like it boosts your confidence, as well as your mental health. It enhances your body composition. Strength training reduces risks of chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes. It boosts metabolism, and building muscle improves bone density, which decreases the risk of fractures that become more common with age, like when you fall off the toilet because no one's there to help you. But back when I first began my strength training routine, I didn't really care about all of those benefits since I just wanted to lose weight faster. Even though I was finally doing everything right, I couldn't get my scale to go down. While I was sick of quick fix diets that only helped me lose weight for a few months before regaining every pound, those diet influencer voices still creeped in every time I stepped on the scale, and that jerk didn't move. Keto is the way humans are meant to eat. Only eat meat. That makes weight loss so easy. If you fast, you'll lose weight without even trying. So after 30 years of always falling right back into the evil clutches of another fad diet, how did I finally quit all diets for good, while instead choosing a more realistic plan that I knew I could actually stick to? I had to think of Pee-wee's Big Ball. Wait, that doesn't sound right. When we think of this tinfoil ball as your metabolism, where every time you add a piece of foil, your metabolism speeds up, you can see that it takes time and patience to build a stronger metabolism. But if you keep building it the right way, you'll eventually get there. And once you've established the habits that build a stronger metabolism, that is when weight loss becomes effortless. But if you start throwing everything you can think of onto the ball in order to make it bigger faster, at some point your ball will fall apart, and then you have to start from scratch. The same thing goes when it comes to losing fat. Fat loss takes a really long time. And the more you rush the process, the faster everything falls apart, leaving you constantly starting from scratch. Whereas if you just have patience and understand that true fat loss takes way longer than you want it to, that speeds up the process since you don't have to keep starting over. But how did I finally make the mindset shift that just because the scale doesn't go down, that doesn't mean I'm not making progress? I had to get rid of the drama mindset that so many dieters have, where what the scale says is the be-all, end-all of my weight loss efforts. Because the truth is, the scale only tells you how much weight you gain or lose, which isn't a great measure of progress since maybe you had more salt the day before, which can push the scale up a pound or two. Or if you cut all carbs, your scale could easily drop 5 to 10 pounds in just a week. All of those quick gains or losses have nothing to do with fat loss, but they have everything to do with water fluctuations. So instead of continuing with the drama mindset of letting how much I lost or gained determine how effective my efforts were, I instead set up a data-driven approach where how much I lost on the scale was only one small part of a much bigger picture. Because I also began tracking things like how many calories I ate compared to the estimated calories I burned each day. I did this since I finally understood that a successful weight loss plan comes down to calories in versus calories out. Once I started tracking how many calories I ate and compared that with how many calories I was likely burning, I could finally see why my weekly weight average was up or down each week. But I didn't stop there since I also tracked my daily steps. I learned how important this was since our bodies naturally move less whenever we drop calories. It does this to compensate for the calories lost since your body fights to hold on to stored fat in case of a famine. So even if I really want to lose weight, my body enjoys the security that all of this extra fat brings, and it fights me every step of the way. I have to fight back by being more purposeful about getting more movement throughout the day. And since I would never build or sustain lean muscle without enough protein, I also added protein to my daily goal tracker. I also have one final page where I post progress photos, since you'll never understand how much progress you're making without photographic evidence. The last thing I track on my daily goal tracker might seem a little confusing, especially since I just spent the last few minutes promising you that the scale is a big fat liar whose only job is to lie to you. Which may leave you wondering, why did this chick go from stepping on the scale one time each week to getting on that jerk every day? How does that get her out of the drama mindset? Well, I originally wanted to keep an eye on my weekly weight average, just so I had some reassurance that my fat loss efforts were pushing me in the right direction. I soon found another reason that checking my weight on a daily basis was key to my 50-pound loss. When Pee-wee began building his big ball, at first he was excited to add more foil each day. After all, it's easy to be excited about something so new. But over time, the excitement wanes, and sometimes you even end up forgetting about your big goals altogether. Like, did anyone else notice that Pee-wee only cared about his big tinfoil ball during season 1? Because by season 2, it completely vanished and was replaced with a huge rubber band ball instead. The same thing happens every time you start a new diet. Those first few days, you are so excited about achieving your goal that you make the best choices to push you closer. But as the days and weeks go by, that excitement wanes. Before you know it, you're way too excited about some new rubber band ball while your poor tinfoil ball was sent to some museum to die. Or in weight loss terms, life gets busy and the strict focus you started with fell through the cracks because of other life distractions. Since it took me more than a year to lose 50 pounds, I experienced plenty of those distractions along the way. So how was I able to stay on track to not only lose 50 pounds, but finally keep it off, even after decades filled with diet failures? Even though there's plenty of opinions of whether or not you should even step on the scale while losing weight, I quickly learned that daily weigh-ins were key to my success. That's not because watching the scale fluctuate up and down has anything to do with how much fat I was gaining or losing. We already established that whenever you're paying attention to your weight, scales that go down one day can easily shoot back up the next, even when you do everything right. That's just part of the weight loss process. But weighing in every day helped me realize that the more bad decisions I made, the higher the scale would be the next day. Like if I ordered food out instead of making a home-cooked meal, bam, my scale was up a pound or two the next day. And then it could take days for that water weight to come off. Or if I went on vacation for a few days, so I said, screw it, I'm just gonna eat whatever I want, my scale always gave me a big fat I told you so, since that jerk was up 4 to 5 pounds after only a few days. And while I know it's not realistic that I actually gained 5 pounds of fat in only a few days, since that means I'd have to eat close to 20,000 extra calories to gain that much fat, if I didn't go right back to daily weigh-ins, I probably would have spent another week or two off track just because. And then I actually would be regaining the fat that I worked so hard to lose. So even though seeing that number isn't always fun, stepping on the scale every morning keeps me accountable. I don't really care if the scale goes up a little or even if it's down on a day-to-day basis. Knowing that I have to step on the scale tomorrow morning helps me make better decisions today. And then I use all of the data that I got from the scale in order to track my weekly weight average, which is a great way to measure if I'm moving in the right direction or if my plan requires a few tweaks. But the only way to make daily weigh-ins work is to only view that number that pops up as data, because that's all it is. I don't get upset if the number's up, and I don't do an all-out happy dance every time the number goes down. You have to keep in mind that your weight isn't a reflection of whether you're a good or bad person. It's just a data point that you can use to fine-tune your plan. I go way more into depth about everything I track to stay on track in my Forever Fat Loss system, which is the system I developed that helps me achieve my goals. The main reason I've stuck to this plan for close to 3 years is it takes less than 10 minutes a day to complete while keeping me on track. But before you check that out, let's talk about the final change that I would have made to achieve my goal even faster. As someone who spent 30 years losing and regaining the same 20 to 50 pounds, this is a change I wish I would have made much sooner, since it would have saved me thousands of dollars plus a whole lot of struggle. But I never understood just how detrimental following this popular advice was to my health or fat loss efforts. And continuing to follow this advice is like putting a tiny band-aid on this ball that is clearly falling apart, hoping that the band-aid keeps everything together. While it might stay together for a week or two, there is no way your tinfoil ball won't eventually implode, meaning you have to start from scratch, which is exactly what happens every time you decide you're a big fat mess who needs to clean up her act, so you throw out everything you love and replace your mess of a life with strict diet rules that guarantee dramatic results by next month. And no YouTube censors, I'm not calling anyone a big fat mess but me, since that's how I felt every time I regained everything I lost, while vowing to be even more strict every time I had to start from scratch. But how did I finally ditch decades filled with yo-yo diets that only left me fatter? Finally getting to this place where it's nearly effortless to maintain a healthy weight. Instead of forcing myself to follow even more strict diet rules that are only one craving away from blowing all of the hard work that I put in for weeks, this time around I took a slow and steady fat loss approach where I built the right habits that I could easily stick to for the rest of my life. Daily habits like walking 8 to 10,000 steps per day or eating my goal weight in protein replaced quick diet hacks like burning as many calories as possible while starving my body of the nutrients it needs with another miracle diet. Forming weekly habits like strength training 2 to 3 days each week, and taking time to track and analyze the fat loss metrics that really matter is what helped me stay on track to finally lose weight without constantly feeling depleted. These are the habits I needed to build to send the signal to my body to speed up my metabolism, which are the same habits you need to form if you want to quit restrictive diets for good and just start living life in a body you love. If you continue obsessing over cardio, or you keep lowering calories to unsustainable levels to get your scale to go down, these are the habits that will forever keep you stuck. But if you're at a place where you're ready to get results with simple lifestyle changes, then watch this video next. You'll learn the 5 cheat codes I followed that finally made weight loss easy, which after 30 years of struggling is something I never thought that I'd say.